Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 4 of my recap of World War One. So we left off with the fall of Liège. This was this, as a bit of recap from last video, is when all of the Belgium forts that basically surrounding the town or of Liège or city, whatever you want to classify it as, uh, these were taken out by uh, we're going back. We're taken out by the German Howitzer or Big Bertha and other German artillery. Uh, the German commander or German general at that time, Erich Ludendorff, took it upon himself to bring about the surrender of the forts. He actually wanted them to, he actually went there. With the Belgian fortresses eliminated, the Germans began a rapid advance to the French border. According to some accounts from people in Belgium at that time, for the first hour, we were quite interested by the marching of this solid gray line of men and these tanks. Then, by the second and third hour, we began to grow bored. But when the 8th hour came, we then became interested again. I believe this was because, the first hour is going to be amazing. You're seeing hundreds of troops going at an hour, then it starts to get repetitive and boring. But after it's been going on for 8 hours straight, not a gap in a single regiment of a single man, it's amazing how well organized it was. That would have been just horrifically amazing. Seeing all these German troops, armed to the teeth, just walk in this center column. You couldn't even cross the street. So, for a time, the entire city or town was cut in half by this mobilization of a German army. The time in which they were attacking Belgium and after it surrendered was called the Rape of Belgium. Fearful of the same attacks that they had during the Franco-Prussian War, the Germans used extremely harsh measurements in order to keep the Belgians from rising up against them. They murdered, imprisoned, stole, and the destruction of Belgium would later be used as propaganda to get people from America, France, and Britain to enlist, and it became known as the Rape of Belgium. And this was the first point in time in which Germany was losing, not the war, but a battle of propaganda. And here are a few anti-German propaganda posters. The first one is "Beat Back the Hun with Liberty Bonds." You can see that it looks like they are showing these guys as these brutes and horrible people. And only the Navy can stop this, which I found ironic because they made it look like a pirate. They did it almost comedical a little bit here. That way people feel like, yeah, we can beat these brutes, we can get them. Remember Belgium, buy 4th Liberty Bond. Liberty Loan, which was kind of like a Liberty Bond or a war bond. BEF, as I mentioned earlier, the British Expeditionary Force, began arriving on the mainland in early August. They began meeting up with the French, but which I find very ironic and confusing. The BEF was led by Sir John French, but he was British, and he had a strong dislike of the French. That's just verbal irony right there, isn't it? He was trusted with 90% of Britain's total armed forces at that time, to help the French. French helping the French, even though he hates the French. Very confusing. The Battle of the Frontiers would be a general term for a series of engagements on the western front of World War One, from August to September. Well, early August to mid-September in 1914. It can be summarized in a few ways. A massive French defeats along the entire front. Horrific losses by the French, eclipsing 329,000 casualties from August 6th to September 5th. That's a little on. That's like 1 month. So to put that in perspective, that's roughly a loss of. I'd like to say a 10,500 men per day. That is just horrific. And a strong German counterattacks in the Alsace-Lorraine region, and a strong German right wing crushing the British and the French. French as in the Frenchmen, not British being led by the French. Again, confusing. As you can see, in the chart here, or the map here, you can see that's massive amounts of German men. Just crippling anyone who tries fighting them. The French retreat. Back on the Western Front, the French, not the British led by French, were unprepared for such a massive amount of German men equipped so well that they were thrown back throughout the entire front. Panicked French troops actually ran away from their posts, and many officers lost complete control. Uncoordinated attacks created pockets of resistance along the line, which did stall the German advance. A lack of coordination among the French and British high command turned to a madhouse just running away. The Battle of the Mons, the commander of the French extreme left. The commander of the French extreme left. General Charles Landerzac pleaded for more reinforcements from Joffre, as well as the British to take up their place on the line. The British regulars, some of the finest soldiers in the world, took their place on the line and began digging in to oppose the Germans. Due to the overwhelming and massive amounts of German soldiers coming through, combined with the French retreating and the British being forced to retreat because they were ordered that the British were ordered. Well, French was ordered by the British, since he is British, that you are not to if you start receiving too many casualties, run away. We're not losing these men. So that forced them to retreat. But according to legend, during the British retreat, angels protected them on the battlefield, holding them back. This was saw by many men. It was either a group hallucination or a misinterpretation of something. Also, alternatively, the French stated that they saw archers from Agincourt holding the Germans at bay. Even when they got back from, some accounts also stated that they saw dead German bodies with arrows in them, and some arrows actually being split by another arrow inside the guy's chest. Kind of holds up a little bit of a theory. Or maybe just a bunch of random guys ran out there starting shooting arrows because they didn't have any guns. In any event, the British forces were able to escape the German trap at Mons, and they began their rapid retreat with the French. This was known as the Great Retreat. Having suffered so many losses, they were forced to retreat. The German right wing smashed all resistance, pretty much went through there like a knife through butter, and began giving chase to the BEF and French armies. The Allied forces were able to maintain order during the retreat because, hey, we're running away, we're not fighting. Which kind of probably let some of the men feel at ease, and managed to set up like small forces to delay the Germans from advancing. The pace at which the Germans advanced was extremely fast for such a large army that had already advanced so far and was carrying so many supplies, that the French were like, oh crud, they're gonna get to Paris. We gotta do something. So the French started to scramble to make the Paris a lot more easier to defend. Sorry if my grammar is bad. And they declared martial law, which doesn't really occur too often in modern history. Which this means no civil rights. Go to your homes, listen to the troops, we're keeping you safe. You do listen to us until further orders or word. And a lot of the French armies were actually sent to defend the city. These armies were led by, this army was led by an aged Marshal Joseph Galin, meaning that he had actually had military experience, but he was aged quite a bit. The stunning German success combined with Russian advances in the east would cause von Moltke to shift several critical divisions to the Eastern Front, which pretty much ruined a lot of the war. Pretty much ruined the entire Schlieffen Plan. But the Schlieffen Plan, even if it did succeed its goal, would not actually succeed its ultimate goal of winning the World War. And here's a quote from Barbara Tuchman from the Guns of August. Although the defects of the Russian army were notorious, although the Russian winter, not the Russian army, had turned back Napoleon from Moscow, although it had been defeated on its own soil by the French and the British in the Crimean, although the Turks in 1877 had outfought it at the siege of Pliva and only succumbed later to overwhelming numbers, although the Japanese had outfought it in Machuca, the myth of invincibility prevailed. Thank you, and I will see you